So this past weekend, comedian Shane GIllis hosted SNL. And this is a big deal because Shane is someone SNL once hired and fired before he could even start. Picking Shane says a lot about how SNL sees itself. Today on the podcast, what Shane GIllis tells us about SNL right now. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, let's start things off with this.
Thank you very much. I'm here. Most of you probably have no idea who I am. I was fired from this show a while ago, but don't look that up, please. If you don't know who I am, please don't Google that. It's fine. Don't even worry about it.
That is comedian Shane GIllis. That's his opening monologue as host of SNL this past Saturday. It is worth talking about because Shane's star has been on the rise. He's got an incredibly popular comedy podcast. He's got a recurring role on the Pete Davidson show, Bupkis. And a few months ago, he dropped a Netflix comedy special. I would say it's fairly common for SNL to choose a rising star as a host. That's regular, But when they announced that Shane was doing it, some people were not happy. Here's the backstory. Back in 2019, Shane got hired as a full-time SNL cast member. That's like one of the most coveted jobs in comedy. But then they fired him. They fired him because he made jokes on a podcast that were racist and homophobic. These jokes included the use of Asian, Black, and Jewish slurs. At the time, Shane GIllis did not apologize for his remarks. What he did instead was do this thing where he said, I will offer to apologize to anyone he might have offended, which is not how apologies work. So choosing Shane as an SNL host now is an interesting choice, to say the least. Commotion regulars Cassie Cao and Critic VanArendonk watched Shane appear on SNL, and they're here now. Cassie, Kathryn, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi, there's so much to talk about. Cassie, I'm starting with you on this one. What did you think when you heard SNL had booked Shane GIllis to host the show?
Oh, just not surprised, I feel like we all know now that being canceled is just a promotion at this point. But I do think that anytime this sort of thing comes up, it just reminds me that as far as we think that as BIPOC performers, we think that we've made progress, that we've made it, and we've had representation, it really always highlights to me how much it's still not our house. Like, we're just a guest here. And it really highlights to me still the importance of having to cultivate our own communities and our own structures, because otherwise we just serve as a function in like this greater machine that we really have no control over and doesn't really care about us.
Kathryn, I'm interested in the idea of, Shane kind of coming out and saying, hey, you probably never heard of me. Please don't Google me. Because you've been on the Shane GIllis, watch for a moment. You have a lot of thoughts about his style and his approach and why that might be resonating right now. Can you just talk a little bit about why Shane GIllis and why right now?
Yeah, so since he was fired from SNL, he's actually had two specials. One was a YouTube special. One was this Netflix special that came out last year. And both of them are doing a style of stand-up that is it's really popular. It's incredibly lucrative. And he actually does it, I think, much better than most of the other stand-ups who are working in this kind of space. Like, he actually has craft. He clearly has worked on a lot of this material. And the idea is that he will tell these jokes with subject matter that sound like they are going to be incredibly awful. Like, he will do these kind of dog whistle racism premises. He did one in the monologue that was about Down syndrome. You could tell how well that did not go over in that monologue. And then when you listen to where the joke actually goes, they tend to try to undermine the initial shock of those premises by actually providing more of a thoughtful or at least personal connection. That Down syndrome joke from the monologue is a great example. He said it. He clearly knows the people. He has done that material before in his specials. He knows that it is this third rail thing. People go like, and then there's a lot of his audience who are also like, yeah, let's say things we're not supposed to say. Yeah. And then what you discover is that this is actually a very personal subject to him, and his family is connected to it, and he has a lot more actual thoughts on it than you would expect for somebody who's just trying to say a terrible thing. And so his work is able to straddle this line for both super right-wing audiences who want a dude who looks and sounds like him, who they can cheer when they hear terrible things for, but then also audiences who are maybe more not leftist, but sort of middle moderates who feel at home with his kind of middle stance on a lot of this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to that audience in the studio at SNL, because there are moments when you kind of go, I don't know if this audience knows what to do with this material. I don't know if they're particularly fully comfortable here, or if they just want to, kind of crawl inside themselves. Can we just let's play another clip of Shane GIllis on SNL.
I don't know if you guys, if you can tell by looking at me, but I do have family members with Down syndrome. It almost got me. I dodged it, but it nicked me. It's funny. Look, I don't have any material that can be on TV, all right? I'm trying my best.
That's an interesting example of the thing you're talking about, Kathryn. The idea that, there's Cassie, everyone sort of feels in the studio like, oh, no, you shouldn't make a joke about people with Down syndrome, and what is this guy about to do? And then the joke goes into a different direction. And as Kathryn mentioned, he sort of talks about family members that he has with Down syndrome. Let's talk about his debut. Let's talk about his debut as SNL host this week. I want to be clear, no matter how good he was or wasn't, that does not, excuse, or render irrelevant all the jokes that he previously made that were racist and homophobic. Cassie, I'm curious how you felt about his performance given all this controversy around his comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed it wasn't funnier, honestly. It was such a bomb, and he handled that bomb not like a professional. You can see middling acts in bad comedy clubs who know better than to start blaming an audience, especially the SNL audience. I mean, that's all friends and family of cast and crew to come out and get so embarrassed in the middle of his monologue to have to drop and say don't worry, I have other jokes. My other jokes can't make it on TV, but I have other ones. My other car is a Ferrari. Is pretty cringy, Very embarrassing, I thought. I think if you're going to make such a splash, if everyone's going to go out on a limb and put you back on this show, at least say something shocking, say something funny, say anything that would be anything.
Yeah,
no punchlines, not much going on. The laugh track was also very embarrassing, I thought. It just especially layered over him continuously pointing out that crowd wasn't laughing. He should have enough media training to know to just play to the camera. It was very cringy for everyone involved.
I should tell people at home that as you're sort of giving that reaction, Kathryn is nodding vigorously. Kathryn, what was your reaction watching that debut?
Yeah, I had a very similar sense that it was shocking to me how amateurish his response was to it going badly. And part of the reason it was shocking is I know that when he is in different spaces, I am familiar with what it is like when he feels like the audience is on his side, because these jokes play differently. He stands differently on that stage. And I think that speaks to him being an amateur comedian. I do stand up. I'm nowhere near at his level, but the job of being a stand-up is to know how to bring a crowd to you. And also, even if that crowd isn't coming to you, to know how to stand your ground and be at least a little bit graceful about it. Yeah, I think it's surprising to me in part because my sense actually is that inside New York comedy and the comedians that I know are he is very popular among comedians here. And I do think there is a sense that he has a lot of skill that was not on display. And his specials, I actually think, are surprisingly decent in the way that these tend to go. And it was I'm not sure what happened in the last week as he was prepping for this. It was bad.
I mean, I have to imagine, the anticipation of the largest platform you've ever gotten in the context of everyone talking about you as the guy who was fired from this platform and is now returning to it. That does something different, to your headspace. We should talk a little bit about the platform. We talk about SNL as a whole. Cassie, it's worth pointing out that the performance we get from any SNL host is usually largely filtered through the editorial lens of a writer's room. SNL has had controversial comedians as hosts in the past. We're talking about like Andrew Dice Clay, Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle has like an open door policy. Anytime that Dave Chappelle wants to walk through the doors of SNL, he seems to. So what, if any, kind of precedent do you think SNL sets with having Shane GIllis here?
I mean, I don't think this is a new precedent at all. I think it's very expected that they would get him. I do want to say, in general, the SNL hosts who are stand-ups tend to write their own material, as is clear that Shane did, because he would have a better set if he let the writers help him at all. I would also disagree.
Cassie
that
going in today.
In any way, a particularly skilled comedian. In fact, I work with a lot of right-wing comedians, so to speak, that are doing not even as big stages as he is. I pretty much think he's a podcaster who gets to stand on a stage with people who already agree with him. But there's lots of very good comedians that you can employ who do represent the political right that aren't given chances like he is. Mm-hmm. And in terms of this set, I mean, I think the only precedent is really setting, or at least confirming, is the precedent that SNL has very little self-awareness about who their audience is, and that they keep trying to alienate the audience that is already loyal to them to reach out to a crowd that is not interested in them.
Well, let's get into that, Kathryn. Let's get into what Shane GIllis sort of telegraphs about how SNL sees itself, because, you kind of have this moment where he is trying to play to the crowd that's like, you can't say that anymore, but he's saying it on television. But that's not really where the jokes even ended up to begin with, And so what do you make of his choice and what that says about SNL right now?
Yeah, well, it is an election year in this country, and they are staring down the barrel of months of needing to be politically relevant to two groups of people where it is impossible to be relevant to both of them. Mm-hmm. And so when you're trying to think who am I going to get as a host that is going to be able to bring in all of this country, which is also a futile exercise at this point, because that does not happen in any form. No. Your options are athletes and sort of movie stars.
And Dolly Parton, and that's it.
And they are often bad at being on SNL. Sometimes you get a gem, and then you're like, thank God, let's book them forever. But often, no. And so stand-ups do tend to do better. Nate Bargatze actually was a great example of a kind of middle-of-the-road comedian. What are his politics? No one's sure. He kind of mostly talks about being American and his family, golf. He did a long thing about golf in his last special. Sure. And so this is the kind of thing that Shane GIllis is trying to reach out to. And particularly, it's this reach out to a more conservative crowd. SNL can still be for you. Did it go well? No.
Cassie, what do you make of this? What do you make of what SNL is trying to say right now?
I hope that embarrassed Shane to his own audience is mostly what I want.
What does that mean? What do you mean when you say embarrass Shane to his own audiences?
Well, I think that it's obvious that he doesn't need to do SNL for his career to go well.
He's successful outside of that infrastructure.
Sure, he doesn't need the left wing crowd, so to speak.
Sure.
So I'm sure that he just went on there as a dare to drop the R word, which didn't go very well for him. But so I only hope that he went there and embarrassed himself to his own crowd a little bit. Otherwise, I don't think he changed any minds elsewhere.
I think that is a good place to leave it. I don't think we're done talking about Shane GIllis. I think he's an interesting window into a particular conversation. We're going to leave it there for now. Cassie Cao, Kathryn VanArendonk, thank you for being here. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Thanks.
Of course. Thanks. Kathryn VanArendonk is a TV critic at Vulture, and Cassie Cao is a comedian and TV writer. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and you're listening to Commotion. Look, in order to have zombies at all, you need a thing that dies and then comes back to life when you least expect it. Like this show.
There has to be a sacrifice.
It's a broken world, Michelle. But together,
we couldn't do anything.
That is a scene from the newest Walking Dead spinoff. It is called The Ones Who Live. It is the sixth, let me say it again, sixth spinoff of a show that ran for 11 seasons and 177 episodes. It kind of makes you wonder, why do audiences want to spend so much time in this grim post-apocalyptic landscape? We have two Walking Dead aficionados here to talk about it. Matt Hart is here and Kaiya Shunyata is here. Kaiya, Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Hello. Oh my God, I'm so excited to do this. I'm excited to do this because unlike all the other spinoffs, Kaiya, The Ones Who Live features the return of Andrew Lincoln, who plays Rick Grimes, who's the original lead character of the show. This man gets disappeared off the show in season 9. We're like, can we please bring Rick back? The show limps forward for another couple seasons, actually pretty decent seasons. I did not mind them myself. And then now he's back, and he's back with his sword-wielding accomplice turned wife, Michonne. She's played by Danai Gurira. Let us talk about these two characters within the larger, greater Walking Dead universe. Tell me about your reaction to The Ones Who Live.
It basically starts where Rick's story ends off. He gets blown up on a bridge and we think he's dead. But in season 10, Michonne finds what she thinks could be his boots. So to her, that must mean he's alive. Mm-hmm. And he is. He's kind of like this resident army guy for the CRM. And
it's like a hidden city, hidden army. They don't
hidden
really
city, hidden army, like we've seen before.
Yes.
And he's kind of grappling with, if I were to leave this place, would I still be the same person that I was when I was with my family, which would be Michonne and the child that he knows they have together, but also she was pregnant and had another child, which he does not know. Mm-hmm. So how can somebody like this kind of go back into the mode of being a family man and a protector when he has kind of been broken down from that archetype? Mm-hmm. And then we have Michonne, who is going on this like Wild West chase to try and find Rick, abandoning her children in the midst of it, which is an interesting choice. So it's about them trying to reconvene, and Rick more so with himself and Michonne more so with trying to find the man that she loves.
Yeah, the episode sort of opens with Michonne and Judith telling Michonne, hey, I'm going to go, you got to go find my dad. And she's like, all right, I'm going. This might take a while, though. And so then she just kind of disappears. Matt, I understand that you have a contentious relationship with the show, because I think when we talk about The Walking Dead, most people ask, when did you stop watching? Not, are you still watching? I did not stop watching. I still believe. But what about you? What's your relationship with the show?
Well, weirdly, it seems like there's a bit of a consensus that around season 8 or 9, a lot of people dropped out. And coincidentally, that is when I dropped out. And I think it's because there's nothing particularly wrong with the show. It's fine. It's just that we're in a holding pattern now of we find some utopian society and there's this benevolent leader. But wait a sec. He's not benevolent. He's not benevolent one bit, you see. And then he turns and then they get out of there. And then it happens again. And then it happens again. And then at the end of the season, someone important dies. And then there's a baby. And I don't know. And then the baby's benevolent. I don't know.
So you got a little tired of the pattern is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. The pattern became just a little autopilot, I think, for them. Like I would feel like they would get bored with it too, the writers and creators. Gotta tell you, Matt, that's just living, pal. That's just, that's just going through life and finding out people who are benevolent and being like, I don't know if they're as benevolent as I thought, and then moving on. Okay, I also understand you might have tuned out even sooner if it wasn't for this. Okay, let me explain to people what we just heard. That is a scene from season 8. Someone is attempting to distract a bunch of zombies with a remote-controlled toy plane strapped with an iPod.
it is blasting a song that just happens to be made by you, Matt Hart, by your band, the Russian Futurists. What was it like hearing your song on the show?
It's one of my greatest discomplishments ever. And a discomplishment is a word I just came up with. It's a disappointment. It's also an accomplishment.
Perfect.
So anyways, I'll give you the short version. I was at a hotel and they called me up and they said, "Hey, we want to use your song." And I was like, "Of course, yeah." And I thought they meant like next season or something like that. Because, you think this would take a little while.
Like a long lead thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. They're like, no, Sunday. And I was like, who did someone get fired? Like, you didn't cram? Like, is someone cramming for their homework right now? So anyways, they wedged their my song on there, and it was my 40th birthday, so I had been out, and I missed the normal airing time of it, so I had to stay up super late and watch it. Yeah. And I felt like a big loser because when they show it, it was a scene with Eugene. I love Eugene. Who's the biggest dork in TV history. It'd be like if you got asked to do a scene on Seinfeld and they give you a Newman scene, pardon me. Okay. You're always known as the Newman guy.
I don't, in fact, I would be proud to have my song associated with anything Eugene does, but that's just me, Matt Hart. And you know what I am is a Walking Dead apologist at heart. Kaiya, people should not take it from me because I am a Walking Dead apologist. I've seen the show. I've seen the show multiple times because it's one of my comfort shows. And every time there's a new season, I go back and start it from the beginning. Yes, I have nothing else to do with my time. But you've seen the first few episodes of The Ones Who Live. Do you think of the show as like the shot in the arm that the Walking Dead franchise needs?
I wish I could say yes.
Oh, no. Come on, no. Kaiya. Okay, all right.
I know. The main problem is it's only 6 episodes long, which is very interesting to me thinking about, like, this was a show that existed on, like, cable and had, like 18 episodes per season.
Yes.
And now it's being relegated to only 6. And in my opinion, it doesn't start getting good until episode 4.
Oh, no. Okay.
So you only have 2 episodes left. But I think the main problem with this is, like, the show is keeping Michonne and Rick away from each other, which when you're marketing to, what I assume is longtime fans who need that, like, shot in the arm to get them interested again, it doesn't make any sense to me to keep these 2 characters away from each other. Yeah. And, like you were saying, like, Andrew Lincoln and Denai have such great chemistry together. Yeah. And in my opinion, it's the most important romantic relationship in the show after Maggie and Glenn. R.I.P. to him.
R.I.P. Glenn. Yes.
But it's the most important romantic relationship in the show. And I think, when fans heard about this, they were very excited. But unfortunately, it feels like the creators don't really know what to do with Michonne and Rick anymore, which I think is a problem with this franchise. Like, what are we trying to say about building community after, an epidemic like zombies? Yeah. And is it just about showing cool ways to kill zombies? Or is it about these characters that we love, but they still don't know what it is they're trying to do? And it makes it really unfortunate because the most impactful parts of this show to me are when Michonne and Rick are not with each other, they're alone, and they're trying to deal with their separate, like, PTSD issues. And, we really see Rick unravel, which is really interesting thinking about this archetypal hero character kind of
who's always together, right? He's like the guy who's like always together. So to see him unraveling is actually quite a startling sight, I think. And I was at least compelled by that in the first episode, but I've only seen the first episode. Matt, we got maybe like 30 seconds left here, but we got to say last year the internet was going crazy over The Last of Us. Pedro Pascal just won a SAG-AFTRA award this weekend for his performance in that show. How does this new Walking Dead show hold up in this light of, that we've given to shows like The Last of Us?
Well, Last of Us has legitimized zombie shows where they're just like a prop, where The Walking Dead's greatest fear should be the writer's room figuring out more elaborate ways for zombies to die. Like it used to be you just like stab it in the head. Now the zombie's got to be on fire, and then there's got to be worms in its head, and they jump out and they're on fire, and the worms are zombies. Like they're writing their butts off here.
I have to say, both of you did not like the show. I will be on my own island rewatching the show. I'm fine with that. Matt, Kaiya, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, man.
Of course.
Thank you.
Kaiya Shunyata is a writer in Toronto. You can read the review of The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, at rogerebert.com. Matt Hart is a Commotion regular and leader of the band The Russian Futurists. Hey, you can watch The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live right now on AMC. I'm going to be watching. Maybe we should watch it together. Should we do that? Anyway, that is it for the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the show anytime you like, wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. Hey, I'm going to be here tomorrow, so if you're going to be here, I would love to see you then.